Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gents. This is DafubFilm&TV, and I have just watched episode 4 of Ahsoka twice, so I can give you my opinion on it. Spoiler warning, there may well be spoilers brought up in this review, just so you know. So if you don't want to listen to spoilers, stop now, watch the episode, and then come back. First and foremost, this is, in my view, an unacceptably short episode. It's longer than the previous episode, for sure, but not by a huge amount. An awful lot goes on during the episode. This is a very kind of action-packed episode, and the very action-packed nature of the episode and the fact that it's set in the same kind of core location as the previous episode says to me that either this was written as this episode and the previous episode were written together as a single 50-minute to an hour-long episode that was then chopped up into two separate pieces to get more episodes out of the season, so they could have the show. They could have the show run for more episodes, which means it would be on air for more, being streamed new episodes for over more weeks. So they could, again, draw out the length of the time in which they have new Star Wars content on Disney Plus to keep people engaged. We've seen this with Secret Invasion. I think it hurted very badly. The latter part of the season is, among other things, a mess because they've chopped down the episodes so much to get, small 30-minute and a bit when you take into account previously on and then the trailers at the end of each episode. They're barely, in Secret Invasion, barely in the high 20 minutes in length. And that was, in my view, clearly done either to save money while maintaining a number of episodes per season, or to lengthen out the season further than was intended. At least that's my guess. And this appears to be the case here. If the previous episode and this episode had been combined together, I would have said that it was actually a pretty good episode of Star Wars television, probably one of the best episodes of Star Wars on Disney Plus we've seen so far. With the only evidence, and this is again, this is the only evidence I can come up with for this assumption I've made not being true, and it could well not be true. That this is not this was originally written as part of a longer episode, which is split into two episodes to get a greater number of weeks on the air, is that the dialogue is very, for the most part, it's short, it's very economical, and not necessarily in a good way. And this, says to me that it is quite possible that, again, this might have been written specifically as a 20, high 20s, low 30 minutes episode, and the previous one as well. Maybe there was a plan at some point for it to be a single episode, and then they rewrote it into two much smaller, shorter episodes. But the dialogue is not where it should be, in my opinion. It comes across, and again, Dave Filoni wrote this, so it's not a surprise that it kind of comes off as kind of, it's been a long time since I watched most of the original Clone Wars animated series, although I did watch the last season of it relatively recently. So I can't remember quite there, but it feels kind of Bad Batch-y in terms of it's, again, very economical in its dialogue, more so than I would like. You don't get, in really deep into the characters in any way. It's only kind of very kind of, what would be the word for it at best? Not cosmetic. That's not the right word to use. It's only kind of skin deep, if you know what I mean. They're not really getting into kind of the nitty gritty, particularly the relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine. You would think there'd be some baggage there at this point, and there's, certainly the story and the dialogue gives that impression. But again, the dialogue is so kind of short and sparse because they just don't have the time for more to really kind of elaborate or build on that or take advantage of that in a real serious way. And as far as I'm concerned, most of the cast, as a result, are not being pushed to their potential in terms of their skill as actors or actresses. I think our sole male Force user so far we've seen, whose name I've completely forgotten. Again, typical me. I'm always doing this. His dialogue is very short and succinct, but he pulls it off really, really well. He's got a great presence. The actor, I can't remember his name. I'm not going to say Dominic West. No, it's not that. He died recently, and which is an awful pity, because assuming his character doesn't get killed off, which probably does, but assuming he doesn't, he would have been, would have been a great character to keep around if this is any kind of indicator, because he does a very, very, very good job with what he's got. But there's just not enough of it, not simply just for him, but for the rest of the mostly kind of female cast. It should be noted that things are a bit looser, particularly with Ahsoka and Syndulla, General Syndulla, if I'm pronouncing her second name correctly. During this episode, they're less dour in places. Now, I don't have a problem with having a female character that's dour, but when they're all dour all the time, it makes them a bit difficult to kind of differentiate them from a character and personality standpoint. And so that was good. But again, maybe I was thinking, I think, yeah, it could have originally, this episode and the previous one could have originally been a single episode. Should have been. If they were, again, a single episode, it would have been much, much better. And this is, again, key, that the number one strategic objective for Ahsoka and for all Star Wars content really released since The Last Jedi is to rebuild or repair the damage The Last Jedi did. And they simply haven't done that. Splitting this episode, if it was part of the last episode, into two separate smaller ones does not help the IP. It gets you an extra week on air, but it doesn't help the IP. Now, maybe there was, as I said, maybe they originally planned it to be a single long episode, and then they rewrote it and so on for much shorter run times, so 2 episodes. But again, it's still a negative. Now, whether it's possible that this could have been, a quote-unquote cheap Chapek situation, where Bob Chapek, who was replaced Bob Iger and then was replaced recently by Bob Iger, might have demanded these cuts or breaking down single episodes to either get more weeks out of each show being made, or said you're not getting the money you want to tell the story you want to tell. So you're going to have to be, economical, and they were economical by producing a lot of very short episodes. But either way, it's Secret Wars was a non-entity. It got very little real public attention. It certainly wasn't appointment television, and for the amount of money it cost to make, if it was 200 million plus, that would have been crazy. I don't know how much Ahsoka cost to make, but again, this is Disney continually making shows with episodes that for live television are very, very short, even by broadcast or cable standards. Let's talk maybe about a 30-minute long sitcom, 30-minute episode sitcom. It's continuing to hurt it. Ahsoka can't be mid. It has to be genuinely good to very, very good to help rebuild and repair the IP and repair the brand. And the last episode, again, it's from what I've seen of Disney Plus's output of late, Secret Wars, and then the terribly made Obi-Wan Kenobi, the again mediocre at best Book of Boba Fett, with like 2 episodes of The Mandalorian thrown into the mix, and then the genuinely kind of very badly put together, highly disorganized, again unnecessarily short episode run times, negatively affecting the storytelling, the writing, and so on, of season 3 of The Mandalorian. this needs to, there's a continual theme of a combination of bad writing and or writing that can't be good because it just doesn't have the space on the page to be good because the episodes are just too short. And this doesn't, again, this doesn't this episode is, probably the most action-packed we've seen to date. You've got some lightsaber battles that are actually much better done than what we've seen of late. I mean, again, the Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff was terrible. The stuff we saw in, the stuff we've seen so far in Ahsoka was kind of okay. These lightsaber fights were much better, which doesn't necessarily surprise me considering how many weeks this show was probably in production and how long it took them to get from filming episode 1 to this episode. Again, the cast have had more practice. They've become more proficient. And so hopefully, hopefully this is a, hopefully this is this is an indicator where things are going to go in terms of the lightsaber stuff. The quality is going to get better and better. Although it should be noted, that again, they're very much kind of PG, not even PG-13, kind of PG-12s. The lightsabers as weapons themselves. You don't see people getting dismembered. You don't see people getting, decapitated. The kind of injuries to the torso are, very kind of, again, as toned down as they could possibly be. In this episode, again, spoiler warning, we do see up until, I don't know what is the deal with him, the character Morok, who was appeared to be dressed up and appeared to be an inquisitor, an imperial inquisitor or former inquisitor. He gets killed in this episode, and the injury that kills him, he basically takes a lightsaber swipe to the torso, quite a significant one. But again, it doesn't look, it's all very as I said, it's all very kind of, even a 5-year-old can watch and there won't be problems, if you know what I mean. Just in terms of, now you wouldn't expect gore, and that's in line with the universe because lightsabers don't just cut flesh, they cauterize it. So again, there shouldn't be any blood and gore and stuff like that. But even so, it's still very, toned down, to put it mildly. And the note of getting killed, Morok, upon death, he basically seems to turn into this smoke and it disappears, or at least out of the clothes/suit that he's wearing. I don't know if that's an indicator or anything. I mean, I was never familiar with that happening with any dark side users or Sith when they die. I know that, again, the Jedi, if they're suitably in tune with the Force, if they're felled, they can just evaporate into thin air. Yoda did it, Obi-Wan Kenobi did it, Luke did it in The Last Jedi. I haven't seen the third movie, so I can't tell you what happens in the third sequel movie, because, again, Last Jedi so put me off, I just couldn't be bothered. And so it's a bit, I don't know what happens there. I'm sure I'll look it up at some point and get some of the informed on the mythology, but right now, or if there is any mythology or new mythology on this. But for the time being, again, there was a lot of speculation going on about who Morok actually was under that suit, and I don't think we'll be getting an answer one way or another. Which is another, it's another, that's another in my opinion, missed opportunity, because, again, according to the lore, before Ahsoka started, before we saw the first trailers for Ahsoka, the Imperial Inquisitors all kind of were supposed to have disappeared according to the lore at some point before, the battle of was it either Endor or Yavin? I can't remember which, but the impression I got was that they had deemed, was that they, again, based on the lore that's out there, was that they had served their purposes and then probably been liquidated by Vader or on the Emperor's orders. Because since they were the only kind of Force users left, because the Jedi were notionally, extinct, the Inquisitors had served their purpose and were now, nothing more than a potential liability / potential threat, as any, Force user would be in the Emperor's world view. So that's an interesting story thread I thought that could be explored, and that I thought would be explored, and that hasn't happened. So that's a pity. The question then is, are there any other Inquisitors out there? Was he the last one? And if so, what, how, and why? And again, that we won't be getting, I don't think, answers to any of those questions, because again, there's only 8 episodes, and I think a lot of those episodes are going to be barely the same length as this one and the last one, which means that they're too short. Again, there's not enough space for storytelling, and the result is a dialogue and a storytelling that is unnecessarily economical. You can't really delve deep into any of the characters. You can't really, get really into the kind of the lore, the new lore that's being put in front of us. Because again, up until the trailers for this show debuted, the Inquisitors were, from what I remember looking at things like Wikipedia and so on, were extinct by the time, certainly by the time of the Battle of Yavin, if memory serves me correctly. Maybe even the Battle of Endor. I can't remember off the top of my head. But either way, it's it's as an episode, it is a strong one in terms of you've got, for those who like their lightsabers and their lightsaber dueling, there's more of it, and it's better quality from what we've seen so far. And a lot happens in a relatively short space of time. It's, I think, well shot and well directed. I've seen other people comment on that online, and they've used the volume, but they've used it, I think it's the bigger volume they've used, and they've used it well. At least it doesn't kind of negatively affect the perceived quality of the production, as far as I can see and or am concerned. But it's I know I'm waffling on here. The same core structural problems remain. Not willing to go above a certain level in terms of the storytelling or the consequences, because again, just Disney Plus tends to be just very, very bland in general, whether it's Star Wars content or MCU content. No real serious kind of long-term consequences. That's true of the MCU, both in Disney Plus and on film as well. You're not seeing the over dependence on the volume has kind of negatively affected the Star Wars content on the platform. Again, doesn't seem to so far here, but they need to do more location shooting like Endor. The episodes are overly short, and negatively, I mean, we should be getting an hour. Considering the number of Disney Plus subscribers, we should be getting at least 50 minutes to an hour per episode. And if the last episode and this episode were a single episode, where you basically had the first 30 to 40 minutes of that episode, or of this single greater episode, was just build up to what you see here, it could have been a very, very good episode of the show, and one of the better, if not the best episode we've seen of Star Wars content, certainly recently on the platform. But that this either need to artificially stretch out the season, or the need to tell a certain amount of story over a certain number of weeks, but not having the money to do it properly, resulting in budget cuts in the form of unnecessarily short episodes, is continuing to negatively impact what Disney Plus is producing. And this is true both of, again, particularly Secret Wars, but it's also true here. Secret Wars has other issues as well. Again, you can look at my reviews and find my opinions on that there. But this is, it looks good. Again, the CGI space sequences look perfect. Like, they look very well made. That's been the case for most, if not all, of the kind of the Star Wars content on Disney Plus. But there has been a combination of weak cinematography, weak directing, poor, disorganized storytelling and writing in general, artificially, unnecessarily short episodes, which again result in truncated dialogue, truncated storytelling, shows that are going on for like 8 to 12 weeks, but effectively could have been, made, or could have effectively just been 6 episodes rather than 12, or 3 or 4 episodes rather than 8, and therefore would have been too short in general, because again, the individual episodes are so short. These are all significant problems, and they need to be dealt with, and they need to be dealt with soon if Disney wishes to rebuild the Star Wars IP, and if they wish to remain competitive in the streaming space. Because again, I haven't been watching a huge amount of Netflix content lately. The fact that Henry Cavill jumped ship from The Witcher has made me generally unenthusiastic about watching the third season. I have a distinct pause. There's a suspicion on my part that this will either be the last season of The Witcher 3, again, I'm going off topic here, or because they've effectively shut down production, or they're basically, the leadership at Netflix is just going to get rid of it's just going to get rid of the current people in charge of the Witcher project, bring in a new creative team, which they really should, or force the existing team to substantially change direction. And it is possible that Cavill might be brought back. The dude who is replacing him, who's one of the Hemsworth brothers, might well find himself in the embarrassing situation of being, what's the word to describe it? Being politely bought off and shown the door even before he can be on set. Because I don't see that actor being able to pull off the role at all. But again, that's just me. Anyway, it's good stuff in many regards. The production is there, the lightsaber duels, the direction, and so on is all much better. It's as much as this episode is better than any episode of season 3 of The Mandalorian. But again, and this is I keep going back to this. It's my problem in judging this show, judging this episode, is that the standards, that have been set previously, both with the recent MCU content that I've seen and all the recent Star Wars content, has been so poor that it's just lowered my expectations, too much. And this is just mediocre dreck as well. I don't know. I don't think it is. And again, I continue to consider the casting of Ahsoka, who's the actress's name. Again, I have forgotten. I apologize. Let me know in the comments. I think is one of the best pieces of casting we've seen in a long time. She's perfect for the role. But the actress, I don't think the actress in question is being pushed to her ability as an actress in acting terms, because the episodes are so short and the writing and storytelling is so truncated unnecessarily, in my view. So, in terms of Filoni himself, there are those who are big fans of Filoni. Filoni will save us. And there are others who are not fans of Filoni. And there are those saying, well, if you think Filoni's going to save us, he's actually not, because he's not good enough a writer. He's just used to him doing the kind of, again, not PG-13, kind of, general kind of everyone from 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds and up animated shows, which in his defense did help keep the pilot a light on for the IP, particularly during the Clone Wars animated series era, pretty heavily. And effectively, a lot of the fondness people actually have, particularly the core Star Wars fans have for the Clone Wars, isn't actually for the cast from the prequel trilogy. It's from the kind of the characters that they played, not in the prequel trilogy, but the characters that were voiced by completely different actors during the animated series. And in terms of can he translate to, in terms of writing to live action, the problem is the episodes are so short. Again, they're the kind of length of they're just like you know, in terms of their overall runtime, they'd be no longer than Clone Wars episodes, maybe a bit longer, but not much, or a bit longer than, say, for instance, Bad Batch episodes or Star Wars Rebels episodes. So it's therefore, I can't tell whether he's actually capable of doing a better job as a writer, because again, he has the same time constraints, only maybe slightly better time constraints than he did on those animated shows, which were very, very short in terms of their runtime, particularly the earlier seasons of the Clone Wars, which would have been on kind of basic cable television, where they needed at least, 10-15 minutes in between the episode for advertising, which again, as you can imagine, kind of, you know, impacted the length of each script and the runtime of each episode. If to be able to judge whether he's genuinely capable of reaching, you know, pushing Star Wars to its potential in live action, he would need a season, again, 8 to 12 episodes long, where the episodes are 50 minutes to an hour a piece each. And so far we're not, we haven't seen that, and I don't think we are going to see that. I have a significant concern that the rest of the episodes of the season are going to be literally the length of these ones. Maybe we might get a longer 40-minute episode or a 50-minute episode in the final. But if that's the case, it's, you know, even if the standard of each episode going forward is comparable to, or even to this, at these very, very short run times, that's not going to be enough to resuscitate the show, and it's not going to be it's not going to be enough not to resuscitate the show. It's not going to be enough to help resuscitate the IP, and it's not going to be enough to make the show what it needs to be, which is significantly better, dramatically better than what we've seen over the previous, you know, year or two. You know, again, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, and season 3 of The Mandalorian. Those aren't, for various reasons, they're not good enough. And while this is better, is it better enough to kind of redirect things in a more positive direction for the IP? Again, the short run time, and if this is the same for the rest of the season, the answer will be no. So that's my 2 cents on this. Again, I've got my rambling. I'm almost at 30 minutes before editing, so who knows how it'll be when it's when you actually hear this. Maybe it'll be shorter than this, maybe it'll be even longer, but this is DafubFilm&TV. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If for some strange reason you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. And if for some even stranger reason you haven't rung the bell to get instant notifications when I upload new content, please ring the bell as well. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, comment. The more engagement I get, the happier the algorithm gods apparently are. This is DafubFilm&TV signing off. Toodaloo.